Well, I'd like to welcome you to another one of Windsor Community Church's Wednesday blogs, and today is May the 6th, 2020, and my special guest today is the Right Reverend Fakaofo Kaio, who's the moderator of the Presbyterian Church of Aotearoa, New Zealand. And as we were talking just before, we were recalling when we first met, and we were quite young then, weren't we?
Yes.
Yeah, it was many years ago, decades ago, and I was in the parish of Waipu, and Fakaofo was on the North Shore. So, and we bumped into each other occasionally, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Over 20 years ago.
Yeah. So, a lot has changed, including what we're going through now. So, can I ask you, as the moderator, and you've been listening to what's going on and being in communication with people, what's your sense of how the Presbyterian Church, as in parishes, have coped with the COVID lockdown?
From what I'm hearing from people contacting me directly, there are good things happening, even with the restrictions and the change that's come about because of COVID-19. There are new initiatives taken by people in doing church, and it's different, but they're reaching more people, different audience. Obviously, the non-contact, no gathering, which is strength of Christianity. It's something we have to adapt to in a different way. There is an underlying concern I'm hearing, not just from our Presbyterian family, but other denominations also. And I suppose it would include some of our churches, that there is a fear that our lack of meeting, and hence the lack of offerings, funds being generated or coming into the parish, will have dried up, and there may be difficulties for some parishes when we resume back to some sense of normality. That there will be weeks and weeks with basically no offering, no funds, nothing coming in. That is a real concern for some of the parishes. Yeah. And there are others I'm hearing that they're thriving because this is their thing. The services online, and young people able to utilize their giftings, their talents that was always on the borderline, but now it's come to the fore. So it's right across. You're right across what's happening.
Yeah. I've been reflecting a little bit on what's happening in the Deep South, and it seems to me that although it's hard to talk about, this is actually a season of pruning, in the sense that there are some churches that have been really struggling already, and yes. Whether they survive this, it's in the Lord's hands.
Yes. And that's not just our denomination. No. It's right across. My Methodist counterpart, we talk about, and they're going through the same thing. And even a colleague, a moderator in Wales, shared the same concern.
Right.
And so it's not just in New Zealand, it's around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've talked about, the finances being a particular challenge, and, like in the southern region, we have some concern, especially for our tourist towns like Aotearoa and Queenstown and Wanaka. The churches rely very much on the giving that comes from tourism. Of course, that's
Yes.
gone. So it's
Yeah.
very big challenge. And they're three quite strong churches. And yeah, it is a concern. So apart from the finance issue, are there any other challenges that are bubbling up?
One that was bound to always come across our church was dealing with time of grief or funerals, and especially funerals where you were not allowed to congregate, and now you're allowed 10 people. Very hard for any family, all families.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've lost an auntie in this time, and I couldn't attend. And I have a sense of what it's like for folks for whom it's an immediate family member. It's been harsh. The day before the lockdown, I conducted a funeral service in my parish, and they were already warned just a day in advance that no gathering of community, just a very immediate family. And so straight after that, everywhere, folks are dealing with how do we attend to people's grief as pastors, as ministers, when we cannot be present, in the phone call, and basically that's it. And so it's been really, that's been one of the hardest part of our church life that we've all had to face.
That's true.
Yeah. There are other issues, but people are getting around, like weddings. They're doing weddings differently, but probably save some money in a way. But lots of bookings, a lot of bookings have to be cancelled. A lot of travels for people that were planned. I'm hearing from colleagues, that they had organized something for years and years, and now it's all gone. But they are grateful that when this has happened, they are still here in New Zealand. Rather be stranded in Asia or in Europe at this time. This COVID has come upon us unexpected, and for some of us, we were able to regroup and organize. For many of us, it was a very unfortunate time it came, and every one of us had been affected in some way or another. And we just gotta keep going forward, keep making contact with people. Like what we are doing is a good thing that we're talking. We otherwise we may not be talking, but it's happening up and down the country, and how it is in the whole world. People are making contact that otherwise we would not be doing.
I know that. I think it was my third interview I did. Was with a local funeral director. So that was in level 4, and he was expressing the difficulties they had with the same issue of catering for funerals with at that stage, not even close relatives were allowed, and they were conducting burials at the cemetery with just them and the sextant at the cemetery. Really, really tough. That brings me on to another one, because I know that the leaders of the denominations meet together, and they have the opportunity to dialogue with people in government, and at times with the Prime Minister as a group. So it'd be really nice if on our behalf you can tell the Prime Minister that of all the really good things that the government's done, this is one place that I'll better put it personally, that I believe they fell down, and not recognising that the spiritual component that is in all of us as human beings in relation to grief. And be good if you could on our behalf pass that on. I don't know how she'll take it, but that would be appreciated.
Yes, I can do that, and others will also, because we're all going through the same thing. she's very open. And when we meet, it's not just the Prime Minister. She brings the ministers for whom who have a profile, a portfolio of each person, the Minister of Internal Affairs, the Minister of Internal Affairs will be present with her. So we usually always have about 2, 3, at times 4 ministers.
Right.
And an open meeting for all leaders of our churches to ask. And we also meet as leaders before that to prepare our questions, our conversations, so that time is very brief, but they take it to heart. I can see, and the follow-on tells me of what they're trying to do from what we spoke about the last time. So they're just trying their best, doing their best. So it's good that you brought that up, and we can ask and share about it, about the folks of deep south.
Very good. I appreciate that.
Yes.
So it looks like we're going to level 2 next week, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. A lot of people are praying. Oh yeah, by the way, just to go back one step, I'd like to say there are 1 or 2 ministers down south who broke their bubbles to be with families with dying people. We can't make that public and announce it nationally, but we just have. But there's some really, good ministers who have a real pastoral heart, and I commend them, even though they took a risk. Yeah. So moving into level 2, which may go on for a few months. Have you got any words of encouragement for us at Windsor Community Church and churches down in the deep south? As we go forward, because we've got to go through another transition.
Yes.
If we can have church up to 100 people, but like us, we've got well over 100 people, so it makes it difficult to try and manage it all. So, words of encouragement.
I think the first thing we must all do as New Zealanders is to strive to abide by the guideline of our government, knowing that it's for our benefit, it's for our well-being. And when as church we meet, we have to be wise and do it properly. Organize ourselves. So say, for example, at your parish, you'll get a couple of 100 people at a time. You have to probably organize. Okay, the first 100 will have a service, and the rest we'll have 2 services. Same sermon, it'll be both brief, but at least people will have a worship time. It's got to do something differently, because it's different time, and cater for our folks as much as possible. I'll probably have the same situation with you, and then if we're going to have 2 service straight after the other, we'll advertise. The first one is say 9 o'clock, next one 10:30. So the first 100 will come, we'll have worship, and then the next 100 will come, and then we just got to make sure they don't mingle, they don't congregate, they don't, just stay apart. I think being apart is the best we can do. I've been isolated, so we don't make contact with each other, because we can do all the good thing we can. We have so far, and just one person out of line in a family making contact, embracing somebody they missed for nearly 2 months. And then one person bring the virus to the home, and everybody's affected. So we've got to be wise. We've got to be clever. We've got to be compassionate. The funeral that the last funeral I was talking about, the mother of the man who died, her oldest son, she was broken. She was deep grief, to be burying her son. And I'm very close to her, because just one of those lady who's real heart for the Lord. And just from a distance, without contact, we just looked at each other's eyes and just cried. And she said her lips, "I love you," and that's all I can say back to her. So it's gonna be like that. We have to be wise. We gotta control ourselves. We don't want to be the cause of creating a cluster or having people say, "Oh, the church have called this." We gotta do our best, look out for each other, play safe. We don't know how long this could be all year. We don't know how long it could be, you know. And that's just on our front. If we open our border out to say Australia, then we're going to be some more restrictions will come on top of it, especially say for the south of tourism. But you know, we got to do the best we can, and the government's there to protect us. But my prayer is for our folks down south. I know the place well, and I know how our folks are set in their ways. It's the mainland. They have particular characteristics of of Southland, and by all means, be who you are and enjoy life, but be safe. Be safe.
Yeah.
That's my word of advice.
Well, as the scriptures say, we are a peculiar people down here.
Yeah, lovely people.
Yeah.
Lovely
and well, thank you for that. And yeah, we're going to miss you coming down. Like, people don't know, but you were due to come down to visit Southern Presbyterian, and yeah, that's gone this year anyway. So,
yeah. If I'm ill, the southern part of the island, the Synod and Southern Presbytery are the first on the next roster of travel. And in fact, I was supposed to be down last month and this month twice, and one person already contacted me. She said, "Oh, wonderful, we're going to be seeing you twice." But now not seeing it at all. Yeah. So if it happens later here, we will be back, but we don't know. It's all in God's hand in a way.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Fakaofo, for taking this time to speak to you. And you know, I offer God's blessing on you and your ministry, both as moderator and a parish minister, and God's guidance and protection for your family at this time.
Thank you.
And that you'll be strengthened in all that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And blessing on you also, Peter, and your ministry and your family and our folks down south.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right.
So that is our moderator, and he's a good bloke, as we say down south. Next week, I'm interviewing Professor David Toombs from Otago University, and he's the Professor of Theology and Public Affairs. And we'll be talking about, political things, really, about the use of executive power by the government and the role of the police under executive powers and all sorts of things. You know, the kind of those niggling questions that are underneath. So he's looking forward to the conversation, and so am I. So that's next Wednesday. And a reminder that we have video church at 10 o'clock on Sunday on this channel. So for now, I would say farewell and look after yourselves. And maybe when I see you next week, we might be in level 2, God willing. Thank you.